So another thing I'd like to review is the order of operations. You might have also heard the acronym of, oh, I pee in a really funny place when I typed. You also might have heard it called PEDMAS, parentheses, exponents, divide, multiply, add, subtract. I like to shorten that down to GEMS. So when we are doing math, it's just like in your writing classes, in your reading classes. We read from left to right. There are certain punctuations that mean certain things, like a period tells us that that's the end of a sentence. Capitals go at the beginning. Mathematical expressions are the same way. There's certain things that we have to follow, just like in the alphabet, the letter B makes a sound B. We know that when we're doing a math problem, that our grouping symbols, our parentheses, have to come first. That's going to be the beginning of our sentence, even if it's somewhere not at the beginning. So it has an order that it has to follow, just like when we're reading. There's a mathematical language, and we've got to understand and follow that, or we will not be able to get the right answers here. So when we are doing order of operations, we always do what's in the parentheses first. So whether it's add, subtract, multiply, divide, whatever's inside the parentheses, that's what has to come first. They put the symbols around it to say, do this first. After we do what's in the parentheses, we look for any exponents, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about those tomorrow. Then we do any multiplication operations. This also means the opposite of multiply is to divide. So anytime we see multiply or divide, that means we are doing those from left to right. So just because we say multiply, divide, that doesn't mean you multiply first always. If divide comes first in the problem, we want to do that first because these are equals. The opposite of multiply is divide. If I have 12 divided by 3 equals 4, I can flip that around and say 4 times 3 is 12. They are the same expression, just written a different way. So these are equals. And then we have our subtraction operations, and the opposite of subtract is to add. And so we group those together, but we always work from left to right. So as we are doing some of these problems, we need to remember, what do we want to do first? That needs parentheses around it, especially if we're going to add or subtract first. If you want to multiply or divide first, you don't necessarily need parentheses around that because you have to multiply before you add, unless there's parentheses around it. So we need to think about using the parentheses to show. Okay, so now we're going to actually solve these expressions. We're going to use that GEMS strategy. So we always want to use our grouping symbols first, then any multiplicative operations, so our multiply and divide, then our subtraction, so subtract and add here. So go ahead and write down 8 times 3, parentheses, 3 plus 4, close parentheses. So let's do this one together, and then I'll have you try some on your own here. So we always start with our grouping symbols. So 3 plus 4 is 7. I like to write my answer underneath, and then I like to cross that out. I know these ones are short, but we're going to be using a lot longer ones. So if we can practice this strategy now, we will help ourselves in the long run. And then bring down anything else. So times 8. So 8 times 7 is 56. So we're really, I like to call it funneling down to get that answer. So looking here, so we have 9 plus 3 times 2. So I don't see any grouping symbols. So what part of this problem do we need to do first? So we need to multiply first because, so we've got no grouping symbols. We don't have any exponents. Then we're looking for our multiply and divide operations, and then our adding and subtracting. So 3 times 2 is 6. So I'm going to cross that off because I've used all of this. That just helps me not accidentally reuse this 3. And then bring down anything I didn't just do. So now we add 9 plus 6 is 15. So I want you to go ahead and try 36 divided by 6 times 4, and then we will come back and check. So the first thing I'd want to do is 36 divided by 6. This problem doesn't actually need these parentheses. It could just say 36, whoops, that's a divide sign, divided by 6 times by 4. And because we're reading left to right, and these are the equal symbols, multiply and divide, not one is not more important than the other, I would still do 36 divided by 6 first because I came to it first. So 36 divided by 6 is 6. I'm going to cross this off and bring everything else down. 6 times 4 is 24.